Ladies and gentlemen, it is lightning round. It is Kevin Tompkins. It is Andrew Cooper. It is Britt Flinn. BTB, big time Brit, straight from ESPN Chattanooga. Andrew Cooper, straight from changing little Lady J's diaper, I'm sure. I am straight from nothing. I am here because I am habitually online and drafting basketball teams. But gang, it is cut down in the NFL. It is also Jonathan Taylor deadline day. How we doing? We're going to get some answers to these training camp battles. We're going to get some answers to the age-old question of will Albert O stick with the Broncos, of course.
No, he already got cut.
Yeah, I know. That's the
yeah.
We just spoiled it in 5 seconds. How
there
you
it is, dude. Way to go, Britt.
Sorry.
Unbelievable. Kev, and before the show, Kev just sits in that room in the dark with the lights off and then waits for the lights to turn on, and that's when the intro starts. And then right after the show, we shut the lights off, and then Kev goes back into sleep mode. Right, Kev?
Yeah, like a Dateline witness. You know, it's really dark. I'm just a silhouette.
Yeah, and then boom, lights, camera, action. Britt, how was your show today with the 4-letter network?
It was great. Yeah, it was really fun. Had a draft with them last night, the Lounge League, which was really fun. The scoring is a little bit different in that instead of the typical 0.04 for passing yard, it's 0.09. So quarterbacks are a little bit more valued. I really wanted Justin Herbert, missed out on him, but still got Trevor Lawrence, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Solid. I think I want a little more Trevor Lawrence. The reason I don't draft Trevor Lawrence is that I like guys like Tua and Deshaun Watson, so I can't bring myself to pull the trigger on Trev, but I gotta get some Trevor Lawrence. Maybe what I'll do is just draft him in my big hometown league and make a big statement there.
Pair him up with Ridley. It'll be great.
Yeah. Love it.
Get old Trev in there. I got a nice NFL MVP bet on Trevor Lawrence too. So definitely hope. Yeah, not too bad. A little dark horse action there. But yeah, definitely excited about what is to come. Maybe not so much for the hundreds of players who will lose their jobs today, but we'll get some clarity on the 53-man rosters. We've already got I guess some clarity. We're like halfway there with this quarterback room. I guess we're going to start it off with the Arizona Cardinals. Did not think we'd be doing that, but it is 2023. We give some preference to the little guys too. So Clayton Tune, Josh Dobbs looking to battle it out. Competitive advantage, Jonathan Gannon calls it, why he's not naming a starter. So, I mean,
there you go, dude. From the team that does not want to win games at all, the team that is actively trying to lose games and released their best player. He wants the competitive advantage of cutting his best quarterback the week before.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah, that's really great, Gannon. Everyone knows what you're doing. Okay, like we know you're doing a bridge year, you're tanking, you're trying to get Caleb Williams. So competitive advantage, get out of here. But I will ask you guys, who would you rather see win the job, Dobbs or Tune?
I don't even know enough about either of them, to be quite honest. And I don't think that it matters. I think that they're both going to be pretty atrocious. And as far as Jonathan Gannon not naming a starter, I can assure you that Washington is not worried about either one of those guys. They are not worried about game planning against any of them. So why don't you just announce it? Carson Wentz is still out there floating in free agency. So might as well add to his litany of color schemes and make it a little bit more offensive by adding some cardinal red.
Yeah, for real. I'm sure the citizens here of Fargo, North Dakota would be jumping for joy to see Carson Wentz in Arizona Cardinals colors, obviously. But look, Josh Dobbs was pretty okay, I guess that's the nicest thing I could say about his couple starts there with the Titans at the end of last season.
Fine.
Clayton Tune, admittedly, I don't know much about, but
I'll tell you what I know about Clayton Tune. All off season in my Superflex Dynasty leagues, I've been throwing him in my last bench spot and on my taxi squad, just saying, well, this is the perfect quote unquote scratch ticket for a Superflex league. If he gets the job, I have a starting quarterback. If he doesn't get the job, I drop him immediately, because too many times we load up the last few spots on our bench with handcuffs and like long-term rookie stashes and guys that are hurt, and we end up having to drop those guys before they even do anything. I mean, how many times do you draft a handcuff and then have to drop that player before the starter gets hurt, or the starter never gets hurt? So Clayton Tune has been a guy that I have on the very last bench spot on a lot of Superflex leagues, and I will happily drop him if he doesn't get the job. Honestly, I might end up dropping him even if he does get it because he's going to be the quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. But at least I'm giving myself a chance at landing what could be a Davis Mills or something. You know what I mean? So, and Davis Mills had some value there for a little bit. So stash him, pick and flip. There you go. Boom. Get it done. Send him to the Kyler Murray owner the moment he gets that job.
I think Kyler Murray's going to be traded, to be totally honest.
Could be.
Yeah, that's going to be murky.
To the Oakland A's.
Yeah. For the Vegas A's?
Not till 2024. 2025, actually. So not quite yet, Kev.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, that team might get 1,000 paid attendance like all of next year, by the way.
Crazy they burned that bridge so soon before they're actually leaving. So the stadium itself, I guess, isn't going to be ready till 2027, and they're already trying to find way. I think they said they found a way to play at some like other field in 2025. But yeah, next year they're going to be playing there.
Well, they have the minor league park that they've had a AAA team in for years. So maybe, I don't know if they're going to split it or maybe. But anyway, this is not a baseball.
That was baseball talk, everybody.
Yes, baseball talk is now concluded. Of course, we had to lead off with the topic that brings everybody into the chat, which, by the way, if you are in the chat, thank you so much for joining us here today. We're getting some people trickling in, but if you have not, like and subscribe to the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel as well. This is how we pay for my college or my kids' college education, not my college education. Right, what am I doing here? But of course, we got people into the seats with the Arizona Cardinals QB talk. Let's talk about Jonathan Taylor, who the deadline's coming up today. It is today. Rumors are Miami Dolphins. Rumors are there's a second team, a mystery team. We know that from baseball that could be working their way into that conversation. But does Jonathan Taylor get traded today? Does he get put on the PUP list? Does he? What's going on with Jonathan Taylor? Because my Jeff Wilson bags, my Raheem Mostert bags do not want to see him go to Miami, but I guess going to Miami also gets him a contract extension as well. So lots to unpack here.
First of all, what would be the worst possible mystery team for him to be traded to? Like the most chaotic for fantasy football?
Eagles.
Well, I don't know. He would right away be the starter. Like, what if he got traded to the Lions?
Oh my gosh. No.
Three-headed monster, David Montgomery and Jonathan Taylor and Jahmyr Gibbs.
You know what? After the Trey Lance trade on Friday, I think that Jerry has just lost his marbles. And if he went to Dallas, the Tony Pollard managers would lose their ever-loving mind.
That would be the best.
The Jets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Scampers has that in the chat.
There it is. Good. That's
Yep.
a good one, Scamp. Yeah. Just watching Tony Pollard Twitter implode for like the 100th time would be amazing. It truly would.
So me and Jacob?
Just you guys, yeah. And Marcus Mosier.
Yeah.
I, however, am in on Tony Pollard this year, so I don't want to see it. For the first time ever, I'm in on Tony Pollard. So let's just keep that the way it is.
Hey, welcome. There's plenty of room.
On the very back.
Room might be dwindling. I mean, I think Britt's kind of on there too. No, she's got some concerns, but as Dallas Cowboy homer lifer, I think she's got to be included in that too.
Yeah.
The craziest thing about this whole saga was the Josh Jacobs contract, where it's like the RB franchise tag is what, $10.9 million, and they gave him an extra $1 million, and it just solved everything.
Like, what was the point? Like, why didn't you do that before?
Yeah.
Should have done that a long time ago. So yeah, for sure.
Causing drama for drama's sake.
For sure.
Which is kind of what I think they're doing in Indianapolis. You know, just give him an extension. What are you doing?
Give him a Les Paul and let's just get it over with.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And the thing is, with RB contracts down the way they are, I mean, things do flip in this league at times. Like Rob Gronkowski was given the highest paid tight end contract at the time, and that turned out to be an absolute steal long term because other people kind of for a bit there started paying tight ends a little bit more. Like if you just make the best the best running back, highest paid running back right now, who knows? Like maybe it will end up being a steal. So, I mean, just lock him up.
I believe that Ian Rappaport was reporting this morning that Taylor wanted between 13 and 15 million a year, and McCaffrey's getting 16 million. So I kind of understand why teams would be a little hesitant to pay him because he's only had that one good season, and then he's been kind of injured. So I don't know if that's true and that's the kind of money that he wants. A little bit nervous about whether or not a team's willing to pay him that much.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't worked out that great in the past, but what if this time it did, right? Like Todd Gurley and the teams that paid DeMarco Murray after his big seasons. I don't know. I think that a guy like Taylor, though, guys like Taylor and Saquon and CMC, I just trust their style of play and also their ability and willingness as people. Like when you listen to Saquon Barkley talk, he always talks about legacy and doing the right thing. Like that's the kind of guy I want around, and I think can play for a long time. Like CMC, I think it has a lot of years left. These guys could be like Derrick Henry trajectories where they're still good at 29, 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paying a running back to me is like the immediate call to it may not have worked out for them, but maybe it'll work out for us.
Right. Yeah, true. Truly. All right. That's Jonathan Taylor, though. We'll see what happens today. What else you got, Kev?
We got
what else you got, Kev?
We got a lot of running backs to talk about. We got a lot of wide receivers. We want to try to hit them all here in another 44 minutes. So I think we can do it. Let's talk about Dameon Pierce, who with Devin Singletary, we were talking, the thesis with Devin Singletary is, well, he's a much better blocker, and he probably is still. Texans running back coach has said that Dameon Pierce has improved his run blocking in preseason, has played almost all the snaps too. So it's very interesting to see Dameon Pierce could be in line for many more snaps and maybe some routes too that we didn't expect him to. Devin Singletary now kind of seems like a contingent play more than a standalone play. So it's very interesting to see with Houston. Houston could be a team that, we certainly project them for, to be with the Cardinals as far as one of the worst teams in the league, but their offense could be better than we thought.
Yeah. I'll say this. Somebody I did a Reddit AMA yesterday, and somebody asked me what player I've had the biggest change on this preseason, and it's been Devin Singletary. Not so much Dameon Pierce, because I do think the team is still going to be bad, but Devin Singletary is a guy I thought it was going to be like a 1A, 1B split backfield, and he was going to do the pass work, and that team was going to have to pass a lot. If he's not going to have that full role, and the role is going to be more of a 1 and 2, then I've kind of shied away from drafting Devin Singletary, but still not really drafting Dameon Pierce just because running, as we say, is the luxury of the winning team. So, Britt, are you in on Dameon Pierce, or where do you stand on him at least? I know Singletary we're kind of fading away from, but Pierce, are you drafting at all?
First, I want to say let's just mark that bingo square. That running is the luxury of the winning team. Right. No, I'm still out on Pierce. I think that, Houston's offense is just going to be really bad. Their offensive line, their quarterback play, even their wide receivers, it's done really nothing for me. And even if Pierce does get a ton of the work, I don't see a ton of production. There are a lot better running backs going off in that range that I would much rather have than take a chance on Pierce in a bad offense.
Yeah, that's very fair. We did say that there possibly could be some updating news as we broadcast here today. And you know what? Nick Folk traded to the Titans. This is the kind of stuff Linda would love.
Wow.
We're breaking kicker news on Lightning Round.
The Chad Ryland era has begun in New England. My goodness, how excited are you guys? Maybe somebody had inside information because somebody bought a Nick Folk card that I had up for. It was listed for like a year on Rainmakers, and somebody bought it like 2 days ago. Inside info, maybe.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
why would that happen?
Makes you think, dude. Those Nick Folk cards are the Nick Folk card market couldn't be any hotter right now. The Rainmakers digital playing cards from last year. Look out now. So, but those Chad Ryland cards probably flying off the shelves too now, huh?
I mean, it definitely makes their draft pick look not nearly as dumb since they traded him, but they also did cut one of their punters today as well. I'm not sure if it was the one that they drafted or not. I just saw like a little blurb of it, but man, what is going on with special team cuts today? That's like all the news that we've gotten so far is special team cuts and trades. It's been weird. It's a weird day.
Broncos trading for Saints kicker Will Lutz. We got this move now, Nick Folk to the Titans. I mean, Green Bay released Pat O'Donnell. I mean, it's special teams mania here last couple of days. So
yeah, I think teams probably, honestly, with the 4:00 deadline, teams probably with their best assets and their toughest decisions, there's a bit of a competitive advantage to being last. Like if you've got a guy that you're holding on, like a wide receiver that returns kicks and is maybe one of the last spots on your depth chart. If you're looking around the league and waiting to see who else other people release, you might release that guy, you might not. So there's probably a whole bunch of guys that right close to the deadline are probably going to get released. And I will say one thing about Nick Folk that people might not realize is that like apparently this guy is like a kicking genius, like a special teams genius, to the point where Bill Belichick himself has been on record saying that. And it's funny when you watch the clip because you can tell Belichick is almost like mad at himself. He's like, I can't believe I didn't think of some of the things that this guy told me about certain stadiums and the height of the stadium. And like, when you're doing farther, apparently he like had all these like tricks as far as like in certain stadiums with farther kicks, you want to kick them lower because if you kick them too high, they reach a point of the stadium where the wind actually changes at that level. Like he apparently has all this crazy knowledge. So bringing a guy like that in is, even if he's not going to be your starting kicker, just bring him into camp for a little bit just to pick his brain might be worth it,
And that Titans stadium is notoriously windy, being there right off that river. So that actually might not be a bad trade for them.
Nick Folk's probably out there right now flying a drone, just figuring out where the hot spots are. You know what I'm saying?
I will say nothing brings people into a live stream, into a lightning round more than Texans running backs, kicker
hot spot, kicker drone talk. This is the
Arizona
kicker drone
Cardinals quarterback talk.
Yeah. I'm telling you though, it is at a certain level of your craft, knowing how, if you kick it at too low a trajectory, it's going to get blocked. If you kick it at too high, it's going to hit the wind. If you kick it at this angle, maybe the lighthouse at Gillette Stadium will protect the wind from it. You know what I mean? It's like these guys, dude, it's at that level, they're playing checkers, man. And the checkers and chess and Parcheesi. It's pretty serious stuff.
Chinese checkers action. Let's talk, speaking of the Patriots, let's talk about their backfield now with Ramondre Stevenson and Zeke Elliott. Kind of nice transition there. But look, I've been on record with my Zeke Elliott takes. If you know me, I think he is hashtag not good running back. But in Ramondre, I don't think this affects him that much. Just give Zeke Elliott the low value touches, let him go off in between the 20s and do what he does. Maybe throw him a goal line, but I don't see Ramondre Stevenson's high value touches being affected at all by Zeke Elliott. So I'm just kind of throw my hands up at, Zeke Elliott as far as having a massive impact on this team or even like a medium impact. I think it's very low impact. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson only scored 7 touchdowns last year. I think even with Zeke Elliott, if they're going to score more touchdowns this year, more points, Ramondre Stevenson is going to still eclipse that and then still carry the high value touches. But what do you guys think about this whole backfield kind of dichotomy?
Britt, you want to go before I drop the bingo square on everybody?
Yeah, let's hold off on bingo. No, I think the reports coming out of camp are that Zeke has been getting goal line work, that he has been incorporated in passing work. And Zeke is one of the best pass blocking running backs in the entire league. And there are some concerns around the Patriots offensive line. So I think he's going to get those snaps. I think, although, like you said, Kevin, he is going to get those shorter, low value touches, he's still going to be a very big part at the goal line. I think that there's room for both of these guys to have fantasy value and fantasy relevance. And if he is used as the goal line back, I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes as an RB3 or RB2.
I'll tell you what. Okay, so get the bingo out. This is a stat that I've dropped on the show before. The Patriots under Bill Belichick, going back with what is now 23 years or so, there's only been one time that a running back has had both 200 carries and 35 receptions, which is not a high bar. And that was last year with Ramondre Stevenson. And people forget that week 1, Ty Montgomery played more snaps than Ramondre Stevenson. Even though he got hurt, he played 20 snaps in the backfield, got 4 targets. It was potentially going to be the same damn thing it's always been, where it's a split backfield and they use certain guys for certain roles, right? Like you put in the pass down back to set up the play action. People see James White come in it sets those plays up. It sets up the draws. It sets up, so it's like the rundown back sets up play action. The pass down back sets up those draws and those type plays. That's the offense they've run. The guy that they just brought in to call the plays was there in 2011 when it was a split backfield. And Bill Belichick, say what you will about him as a GM, but as a coach, he's obviously a Hall of Fame caliber coach, and he's rational to an annoying degree, where he understands that if you have a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, even if he's your best player, sometimes you want to use the other guy. Like, that's why when the Patriots would go up by 20 points, which, I mean, probably not going to happen too often this year, but when the Patriots go up by 20 points, you wouldn't see either James White or, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, or Stephen Ridley, or whoever the starter was. You would see Brandon Bolden or Danny Woodhead or some other lunch pail guy, Rex Burkhead.
Jonas Gray,
dude. Rest in peace. 4 touchdowns versus the Colts. Got cut for missing his alarm clock the next morning. Yeah. So, like that, there's a real possibility that if the Patriots, like Kev said, high leverage plays that matter most, you'll probably see Ramondre Stevenson. But every chance they get to not put wear and tear on their best players, they will use it. So that's why I'm kind of with Britt that I think Zeke could definitely in best ball, at least he could sneak in there and definitely crack your lineup a number of times.
He's RB 49 on Underdog still.
It's free real estate.
That's
I'm not drafting a meat shield at RB 49.
A meat shield?
It's free real estate.
And I just have to say, Scampers, you're triggering me.
Look, I've said this time and time again. There's good people on both sides.
That was one time.
This side is correct.
It was one time, and it was Kellen Moore's swan song leaving Dallas.
I'll tell you what, if Zeke Elliott lines up at center and then he gets his hands on a lateral and scores, then we're talking about that as some of the greatest play design of all time. Like, why the thing about the joking about the center thing, it does make sense if you're going to do a lateral play like that. Take the big clunky guys off the field, right? So I don't even think that play was that crazy.
I'm kind of sad that he got signed, because that being his last play in the NFL would have been
something.
Piece de resistance. Let's talk about the Vikings backfield now. We're going to talk about some backfields here. We are going to switch over to wide receiver, of course. Can't talk all about running backs, but Alexander Mattison, Ty Chandler, there's actual legitimate steam for Ty Chandler now, at least not fully taking away from Alexander Mattison, but taking a little slice of the pie. And usually when you take a little slice of the pie, the slice of the pie gets a little bit bigger as long as Ty Chandler's efficient. And, if Mattison is showing how inefficient he has been in the last couple of years, I think that there's real chance for Ty Chandler to kind of muddy up his backfield a little more. Ty Chandler's ADP is certainly not very restrictive to at least taking a chance on him in the RB 60s. So the Mattison Chandler debate of 2023, how are we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, we look at the behind the scenes metrics with a guy like Tony Pollard, right, where they're all excellent. And that's why guys like Jacob Sanderson and Kevin Tompkins have always liked Tony Pollard. Alexander Mattison is kind of the opposite, where he was in the same situation in theory as the backup that played well when he got in there, but his metrics aren't quite the same. Like, in a vacuum, I don't think Alexander Madison's an amazing player. And if you take guys like that and start, taking out big chunks of pie, like Kevin says, then now we have a short, we have a small share in a player that's not amazing doing it. Only guys like Alvin Kamara can take a small share and turn it into crazy seasons.
You have to be so crazy efficient to do that.
Right. That's the problem. So I worry that, if you have Dwayne McBride, who is an absolute sledgehammer, and also Kene Nwangwu, who, if this guy if he keeps running back kicks, at a certain point, you have to say, okay, let's just try and give this guy the ball in space on offense, right? Like, he's run back kicks, three kicks in 2 years. He's all pro kick returner. It's like, say what you will. At a certain point, if he continues to do that, you have to just say, okay, let's find a way to get this guy in space, like Cordarrelle Patterson or
what the Chiefs did with Dante Hall. He ran back about 1 million kickoff and punt returns. They're like, what can we do on offense? So we run out Eddie Kennison.
The Bears did it with Devin Hester. The Patriots did it with Marcus Jones last year. Marcus Jones, had a pick six, and then he ran back a kick. And then they said, okay, hey, we'll throw him on offense. And the first screen they threw to him, he took to the house against the Bills. He scored on all 3 phases of the game. So Bill Belichick probably has a picture of him on his nightstand, right? Like, all 3 scored
like
just on all 3 phases.
Where he's just like
He's
laying in bed
100%.
petting him.
Yeah, Marcus Jones scores touchdown all 3 phases of the game. Of course, the most Belichick player ever. So, but I mean, that's what worries me. It's so you have all these guys that everyone kind of likes, and at the end of the day, maybe they just use them all, and that sucks for fantasy football. Nobody wants that.
Yep. And I will say that Ty Chandler was reportedly struggling through the early days of camp. But a couple of weeks ago, this quote from Kevin O'Connell really like perked my ears up for Ty Chandler. He said, "I thought Ty Chandler jumped out. Anytime he had the ball in his hands, he was very rarely tackled by the first defender that was in that space." And that is not something that we can say for everybody in this backfield. Their offensive line honestly isn't that great. They have a lot of holes to fill there. So if Ty Chandler is the guy who can actually create running room, then he's going to be in it a lot more often than not. So I'm definitely in on him, especially at his price point, and not just because I took him in Queen's Classic.
Right. Yeah. Look, and the thing about, that whole backfield is that Nwangwu is going to be active every week because of his role in special teams. The only guy that I'm worried about is McBride, because it's going to take an injury for him to even be active on game day. They still roster a fullback, CJ Ham. So you're talking Madison, Chandler, Nwangwu, Ham. That's already 4 running backs. Like, teams rarely carry 5 running backs.
McBride might not make the team, honestly. Like
he could be a practice squad guy.
He was like a 6th-round pick, and you're right. The thing about McBride at being like the hammer that he is, and when I say hammer, this is what I'm talking about. This guy had 1,700 rushing yards last year and 2 receptions. Yeah. 2. He had 5 in his entire college career. So that guy is not going to be a pass down back. He doesn't play special teams. So if you're not using him for the one thing he does, then you might not even need to have him on the roster.
That is correct. So let's shift over to another interesting backfield. I feel like we talked about, actually, we had not talked about this that much. The Buccaneers backfield with Rachaad White and Sean Tucker, my boy.
Scary town. Sean Tucker. So I've done a lot of research on this when it comes to day 3 picks and undrafted players. And my policy is that if there is some sort of red flag, whether it be attitude or off-field stuff or medical or whatever it is, I actually like those players better than the players that just aren't that good. Like if you fall to day 3 because you're not that good and you're probably going to be a career special teamer, I'm not interested in fantasy. But if you fall to day 3 because you just got arrested or something, or in Sean Tucker's case, because he had a heart condition that multiple teams wouldn't clear him for. Same with a guy like Justin Ross. If Justin Ross reportedly only 4 teams were willing to even let him play. So, of course, that's why he went undrafted and why the Chiefs signed him, but the Chiefs are going to clear him. And same with Sean Tucker. He had this like heart condition, but apparently it's been cleared. So the guys like that, where there's a reason they fell, I'm more interested in players like that, where that's how we got, think about it. That's how we got Tyreek Hill. That's how we got Pierre Garçon was a day 3 wide receiver.
Stephon
Diggs at Maryland, multiple instances where he was like arguing with the coaches, and Maryland also is not that great of a football school.
Kelsey to a point too, because he was a 3rd-round pick.
Right. Julian Edelman was a quarterback, right? Like these guys Antonio Brown was legitimately certified crazy. Like there are reasons why these guys slide all the way to where they do for the most part and then blow up. So a guy like Sean Tucker, I'm much more willing to take a stab on him than a guy like Dwayne McBride, who fell in the draft because he has bricks for hands.
And the thing with Sean Tucker is that even in the pre-draft process, very early on, he was being touted anywhere between the number 1 and number 3 running back in this entire class. Yeah. Like the talent is there. The only thing that worries me is the season-long absence of Ryan Jensen yet again. We saw it last season. The efficiency was way down with both Fournette and Rachaad White as far as their rushing yards go. Rachaad White obviously has that pass catching upside. I haven't seen enough of Sean Tucker. Kevin, maybe you can shed some light on this, like how he is as a pass catcher. But if that offensive line is in kind of the same state that it was last year, I'm a little bit worried about pure rushing yards. Now, that's not to say that talent can't overcome that. But with all these other factors and unknowns on the Bucs offense, it just makes me a little bit wary about it.
I feel before you just go on that, Kevin, I just want to say I feel terrible for Ryan Jensen. Honestly, at this point, it's looking like that might be career ending, the knee injury. That sucks, man, because he's a great player,
Yeah, tough stuff. Yeah, Tucker. I mean, Tucker can catch 30, 40 balls in the NFL. Like, he's not going to be like a super crazy pass catcher. He did really well with Syracuse in that regard. I called him Little Eckler just because he's not as good of a pass catcher, certainly, but he's a much better, runner and, in between and on the outside. So, Tucker, he's a little bit slower than you like, but he's very productive. So that's about where I'm at with Sean Tucker. The what's around him, Chase Edmonds and Keyshawn Vaughn, I don't think those are really hurdles. If Tucker, who we're looking at, being possible day 2 pick, before the heart condition, certainly. So I am very intrigued by if Sean Tucker can make some headway, earn a role with Buccaneers in week 1, because if he does, we know Rachaad White, that whole backfield last year with Fournette and Rachaad White was the worst backfield in football as far as production and efficiency. So there is plenty of room to maneuver with Sean Tucker there. And, like I said, if he works out where he gets a role day 1, I think he can kind of ramp up from there and possibly could be a 1A, 1B situation with White.
Yeah, I got some info here on him in the past game. Looks like 52 targets, which is nice. And he also didn't let up a single pressure in pass blocking in his last year at school. So
they did a lot of passing too.
All good. Yeah, all good things, it seems. So, and he had played like 173 true pass sets and pass block, about 10 times. So he's running a lot of routes, but yeah, no, in the true pass sets, no pressures, regular sets, obviously no pressures either. So, hey, not bad.
Yeah, that's what you want. And then I'll talk about one more because I think it might be the murkiest here. And it's kind of near and dear to maybe Britt's heart here. The Dallas Cowboys with Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, Malik Davis behind Tony Pollard. It's truly anybody's game. We all love Deuce Vaughn as far as the story. Rico Dowdle probably has the leg up right now on the RB2 role to start the season. Britt, what are we doing?
Yeah,
are we buying Deuce Vaughn? Or are we?
Yo, how about Deuce Vaughn last night in that $5,000 entry draft, Britt?
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah. If you guys missed that, the replay is on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel. Deuce Vaughn went at the end of the 9th round.
Great googly moogly. I was like, what in the heck is going on, dude? The thing is, in case they watch it, I didn't want to be too hard, but I was like, what? $5,000? $5,000 Deuce Vaughn pick?
Yeah, it rattled me. I wish that I could have concealed my face a little bit better because just the utter shock of seeing him go that high. And now we're seeing Rico Dowdle as the RB2 on the depth chart with Deuce Vaughn at RB3, and then Malik Davis, who was once the RB2, all the way down at RB4. I really don't know what to make of this backfield. Arguably Dowdle is the biggest guy, but that's not really saying much. He's only 5'11". Davis is 5'9". Deuce Vaughn is 5'5" to 5'6", depending on the shoes that he's wearing that day. I just don't really know if any of these backs are going to make an impact. And that's why with the Trey Lance trade, I would not be surprised at all if they utilize him kind of in a Taysom Hill gadget role as a runner, because I don't know if any of these 3 running backs behind Pollard have much, if anything, to offer.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if I'm going to take anybody's Dowdle, but I'm just waiting forever. Honestly, I'm with you, Britt, that Jerry could do something crazy here. Fournette with a star on his helmet. No.
That's what I keep looking at too, because Fournette is very good at pass blocking, and we have seen that obviously all of those guys on Dallas's offensive line are continuously and perpetually injured. So having a good pass blocker is really important in that backfield, and none of these guys fit that build.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the Cowboys and the Chargers, those are the 2 teams where I can't believe they didn't bring in any extra help. They didn't really draft any extra help. They didn't bring in any extra help. And those are the 2 teams where it's like the guys that are kind of end up being available are those guys that can just get you 1 yard when you need 1 yard. I mean, that's exactly what the Cowboys and that's what the Chargers lost to the Jaguars for that exact reason, because they didn't have a guy that could run when everyone knows you're going to run. So I'm just surprised. I'm surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's where Fournette ends up.
Okay, so now can we talk about this as well? That King's Classic auction where somebody nominated Dowdle very, very early on for $1.
That was Bob Harris, I believe.
That looks like genius maneuvery at this point.
I do like that. I do like the one guy that took Michael Mayer for $1 though. A little bit after that.
Is Scampers news in the
was
chat? Is that legit? Did we just?
That's
Yeah,
for Calvin Watkins, by the way.
Yeah, I
But
got the
Watkins is-
notification right after Scampers posted it in the chat.
No, nobody's more plugged into the Cowboys than Calvin Watkins.
Yeah. So
100%.
yeah, I went to verify that, but yeah, that kind of clear. I want to say clears it up a little bit, but how much does it really clear it up? It's more. It's going to be a week 1. We'll see how snaps and everything shake out, but it gives us a little more information, but it really doesn't in the grand scheme of things. So let's go. You know what? We talked about running backs enough. Let's talk about some wide receivers here. Let's talk about Mr. Too Many Touchdowns in Carolina, Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo. With Terrace Marshall hurt, with DJ Chark hurt, there's a lot of injuries in the Carolina wide receiver core. So right now it's really Jonathan Mingo and Adam Thielen kind of heading up the ship right now. We thought Adam Thielen would be tied into purely a slot role where he was coming out, when they condensed down to 2 wide receivers. But just based on need, it looks like it's going to be Mingo and Thielen to start the season if Chark and or Marshall can't, suit up. So I don't want to say I'm in on Thielen. I actually drafted him on purpose in Best Ball Mania yesterday. So, things change. New information. New shit has come to light. So what do you guys think about Mingo and Adam Thielen in that offense? I know it seems pretty condensed right now when you toss in Hayden Hurst too.
Well, the thing about Hayden Hurst that really surprised me, and I might have to admit that I was wrong on this take, the final 2 preseason games, he didn't get a single target. So I'm like, you've got Thielen out there, you've got Mingo, and that's it. That's the only 2 that you're utilizing right now. A little bit puzzling to me. But with these 2 guys, they're still basically free in your drafts. I mean, they are going very, very late. I think because people think that this is going to be basically just a committee wide receiver room, kind of like what we see in Kansas City. Thielen's going as wide receiver 66. Mingo's going immediately after at wide receiver 67. So I think that tells you everything that you need to know. It's going to be split as far as target share percentages, and there's not really going to be a number 1 guy.
According to Twitter, when a player doesn't get any targets or snaps or good usage, and if nothing good happens during preseason, that just means that he's their top secret weapon, and they're using a vanilla offense because it's preseason. That's at least according to my mentions on Twitter. I've been informed that by people who clearly are, they're in the know on the real game plan, on the super secret game plan, but the rest of us are not allowed to know. And I'm so thankful that they're always there in my mentions to clarify. So Hayden Hurst getting no targets in the preseason and not playing any snaps at wide receiver, that just means that he's basically Superman.
I mean, I hope so, because I don't want to be wrong, but
my thought process, and this is a very similar thought process that led us to Evan Engram last year, is that if the ball is going to be spread around and it's going to be fairly even, why not go for the guy that has tight end eligibility, which is huge in fantasy football? Right. The difference is that Evan Engram's awesome and Hayden Hurst is Hayden Hurst. But I mean, who knows? It's all up to Bryce Young and what he ends up doing. And it could very well be when you have a smaller rookie quarterback, it's easier to locate the big tight end running short 8-out routes than it is to chuck it downfield to guys like DJ Chark running 1,000,000 miles an hour.
That's true. Plus, with Frank Reich, it's really interesting, how they manage their tight ends with the Colts, just not having a bunch of guys there versus really one guy. I mean, the whole Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Granson, Jelani Woods, that whole saga. So, having Hayden Hurst and the dusty Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble, kind of lend himself to maybe they're going to do the same thing again, but over the Bryce Young's first 32 snaps in the preseason, Hayden Hurst led them with 29 snaps. He was playing with the starters and getting condensed, snap percentages with Mingo, with Chark.
They made him the highest paid free agent tight end. He uses the highest paid free agent tight end in the league, just getting barely more money than the stud Josh Oliver.
Oh yeah,
that still makes no sense to me that Josh Oliver got paid more than Dalton Schultz. What in tarnation
in this economy?
Crazy. I mean, that's what people are saying. Oh, I like that people are drafting KJ Osborne. I'm like, how could KJ Osborne play even anything close to a full snap share with CJ Ham and Josh Oliver playing? It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But
running back should be looking to get some Josh Oliver money.
For real though, it's insulting.
It really is.
It's upsetting. It's upsetting.
I did want to talk about this particular wide receiver group because I think it's for me, it's the most interesting out of all of them. And that's Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and how that is all shaping out, with Zay Jones, surprisingly, at least to me, playing more of the two wide receiver sets. Christian Kirk's always been in the slot. He's been a slot ever since he was at Texas A&M, and the Cardinals kind of moved him inside, outside, stuck him inside in his last year in Arizona, and then kind of playing a little bit of both last year. But now it looks like Kirk is going to be the slot guy. And when you look at the ADPs where Zay Jones is going in like the 10th, 11th round, and then Christian Kirk is going in the 4th and 5th, like, what are we doing here? Like, Zay Jones has got to be screaming up draft boards here, because you're tying Trevor Lawrence, you're tying this ascending offense to him, and if Zay Jones is going to be out there 85, 90% of the routes and snaps, like, why isn't it? I mean, Zay Jones should be a 6th, 7th rounder at least.
I think this is more damning for Evan Ingram than it is for Christian Kirk, because Coop, you made a good point. I believe it was yesterday about Cole Beasley.
I make great points every single day.
I was going to call out the specific great point. About Cole Beasley only playing, 65% of the snaps, but still leading wherever he ended up. Anyway, just because you play slot does not mean that you were dead to fantasy managers.
Right,
and I think that Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk really do have a relationship together. He just functions best out of the slot. Now, like I said, with Evan Ingram, if Zay Jones remains on the outside and Kirk remains in the slot, that gives very, very little targets available for Evan Ingram. And I'm more worried about him than I am Christian Kirk. If you're looking for value, then yeah, scoop up Zay Jones, but I'm still taking Christian Kirk where he's at, just because I really do believe in that relationship between him and Trevor Lawrence.
So I wrote a full article on this year on Fantasy Alarm. If you just type Andrew Cooper, slot wide receiver, basically it's a matter of upside. So Britt's right. You don't necessarily like the stat you're referring to there is that Cole Beasley played 68%, 63%, and then 58% of his snaps for the Bills, which is, like half the game. It's Michael Pittman plays 97%. This guy's playing 68, 58 at age 31, 32, 30, 31, 32. And in those years, he had over 100 targets in all 3 years. So it's entirely possible. But for slot wide receivers to truly unlock the super high end upside that we get from playing slot and playing flanker, that's what you need. You need for it to be a 2 wide receiver set. They move to flanker, and in 3 wide receiver sets, they stay in the slot. So an example of a guy that doesn't have the upside because he comes out of the game is Tyler Boyd. You go to 2 wide receivers, it's Jamar Chase, it's T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd comes out. Cole Beasley comes out of the game. That's why he wasn't really having, 1,000-yard seasons. The example of the super high end upside is Cooper Kupp, who plays the slot in 3 wide and then stays out there. Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin. That's so in our fantasy gamer minds, when we say, oh, we want guys playing slot, we're not actually really truly thinking about pure slot guys. We're thinking of slot guys that also play flanker. That's the cheat code. And that's where Christian Kirk last year was that guy. Played slot. And it was him. It was Zay Jones on every snap. And then Kirk played slot and he moved out wide. And Marvin Jones was the guy that playing a partial snap share. We want Zay Jones in the Marvin Jones role. If Christian Kirk is playing a Tyler Boyd type role, that's the problem. And what all this, looking at this all offseason, the one thing it's done for me, it's moved Calvin Ridley up, because it's clear to me that Calvin Ridley, of the 3 guys, is kind of locked into that chair that he's not coming out. And he hasn't been coming out at all during the preseason so far. So enough about that. There's an article on it, a full article with all the stats if you want to check that out. fantasylive.com.
Do we want to talk about Marvin Mims and this whole Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Mims? I mean, Cortland Sutton's pretty locked into right now, though. But I mean, on that, and I guess we can kind of throw the whole Adam Troutman, Greg Dulcich in there. We can just make this a whole Denver Broncos expose if you want.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't stop drafting Marvin Mims. I really can't. Like, I'm steaming him up to where Sky Moore is being drafted, like at the very, very tail end of that wide receiver run when it gets to the Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, way obviously. I'm steaming him past Romeo Dobbs. I'm steaming him past pretty much everybody else. Once he gets to like Sky Moore, that gives me the cover I need to draft Marvin Mims, because we know Jerry Jeudy's going to be out there. We know he's going to be out there in like week 3-4 with his hamstring. We know Cortland Sutton's going to be locked in there, but God, Marvin Mims just seems like a smash right now as ADP. I mean, right now I think it's still in the 120s, 130s right now.
Yeah, he's going as wide receiver 59 still on Underdog. So even, he's been steamed up a little, but definitely not to where I thought. And in that last preseason game, he only caught 2 balls, but they went for 51 yards. I mean, this guy is a straight up vertical threat. And in that Sean Payton, Joe Lombardi offense, I think that he's going to do really well. The question is, though, is it going to be him or is it going to be Greg Dulcich getting these targets and becoming second on the team while Jerry Jeudy's out? I'm still on board with Greg Dulcich. I think that usage just historically has been what Sean Payton has done. But I could be totally wrong. This is why we have these discussions, because we just don't know at this point.
Yeah, it's the thing with that keeps the Greg Dulcich lamp lit is the idea that Sean Payton, easy for me to say, Sean Payton basically said the word Joker with him in there, and then then Tim Patrick went down. So there's a real possibility that when you look at Jimmy Graham and the reasons why Jimmy Graham with the Saints tried to fight the franchise tag is because the Joker idea is to take a player and use them in a way that the defense isn't expecting, so the personnel isn't ready for it. When you take Alvin Kamara and have him not just run to the flats, but run a Texas route over the middle, and now a linebacker needs to stay with him, that's the Joker concept, is that this guy's a wide receiver and they're not covering him like a wide receiver. You take Jimmy Graham and you move him out there and they send a tight end out there or they send a safety out there, you're dead, right? So that's, especially with Tim Patrick out, if they're going to use Greg Dulcich like that, awesome. The concern, of course, is that what if he's just not Sean Payton's guy and Sean Payton wants to use all his guys, which this new regime did draft Marvin Mims. So just saying, with the Marvin Mims, the Dulcich thing, Mims is a guy that gets more and more intriguing as players get cut, as as people get hurt. Now it's in the land where I'm actually drafting Marvin Mims. Whereas before I looked at this offense and I was like, okay, they're going to use fullback Michael Burton, he's played a ton with the starters in preseason. They're going to use Adam Trotman. How in the world is the wide receiver 3 or 4 going to get on the field? Well, now we know how in the world he can get on.
But do you guys think that Greg Dulcich has been falling too far in ADP because of that whole depth chart situation with Troutman being ahead in the depth chart? Because for me, Troutman has always been a blocker. He's never really had any receiving value. And that to me just means he's going to be out there blocking. Like, am I crazy?
I have in my day called him Fancy Eric Saubert. So that's pretty much, look, he's going below Jake Ferguson and Luke Musgrave right now on Underdog. He is tight end 21, 166 ADP. He's right after Herb Smith. I think we've jumped a shark on Greg Dulcich.
Yeah, I've gone so far as that I was out and now I'm back in. But honestly, it's a little more simple for me. When Jerry Jeudy pulled his hamstring, I was back in on Dulcich. That was it. If Jerry Jeudy was playing, I would be out.
Like previous regime, Dan, the dude came back in week 6 on Monday Night Football and immediately ran like 85% of the routes. Like, what are we doing here? We're talking about a guy that has an ADOT. We're looking at guys like Darren Waller and Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts, guys that he can match up with those as far as athletic profile. I mean, that's what we're looking. We're looking for that kind of like home run hitter at tight end. We're not looking for, I mean, some of us are looking for the Tyler Higbees, but I mean, when we're looking for guys that can actually massively outperform their ADP, Greg Dulcich is the athletic profile you want. But we're not playing real NFL football here. We're playing fantasy football. So, of course, Sean Payton he's not a fun haver.
Sure.
Yeah. And he's a little sassy too.
He is a little sassy, isn't he?
Sean Payton? Dude.
Yeah. I can't wait for week 5 against the Jets. That's just going to be.
It's what the whole Nathaniel Hackett thing. So I completely understand his comments when he said, like, we're changing everything that was done here. Cause yeah, that's what you do. But then he went and had another comment where he was like, And yeah, we don't care about winning the offseason like they're doing over there in New York with the Hard Knocks and all that. And I was like, first of all, you can, it's okay to be mean about Broncos Nathaniel Hackett, but you got to continue to be mean about Jets Nathaniel Hackett. Like, just leave the guy alone.
What about Syracuse Nathaniel Hackett?
Syracuse Nathaniel Hackett was fine. The one Nathaniel
No,
Hackett,
he wasn't. No, he
okay,
wasn't.
so Syracuse Nathaniel Hackett, I didn't
Had
like.
Ryan Nassib. That's about it.
Syracuse Nathaniel Hackett didn't like. Packers Nathaniel Hackett did like. Broncos Nathaniel Hackett didn't like. When he was the Bills OC and he said he was going to give the ball to CJ Spiller until CJ Spiller threw up, I definitely did not like him in the leagues where I drafted CJ Spiller because that didn't happen. So Bills Nathaniel Hackett, we don't like. Jets Nathaniel Hackett, though, we got to give him a chance. We got to give him a chance. So Sean Payton, ease up on the shade a little bit just for a minute, dude. And the other part of that is they had no they didn't choose to be on Hard Knocks. They actively tried not to be on Hard Knocks. So you can't say, oh yeah, with their fancy Hard Knocks. The coach straight up said, we do not want to do this. And the league said, you do not get to choose.
But did you see Breece Hall just straight up walk right by him? That was the biggest diss that I've ever seen. Like, Nathaniel Hackett had to chase down Breece Hall and be like, hey, I'm your offensive coordinator. Come over here and talk to me. Like, I don't know if he's got as much respect in that room as we think that he does.
No. But as long as Rodgers likes him, that's all that matters.
Yeah. You know what else I like? This little birdie over here, Underdog Fantasy. You can use promo code ALARM and get up to a $100 deposit match. If you deposit 25, get 25 back. That's a buy one, get one basically free on Best Ball Mania 4, which is still not filled. So you can get in on that. You spend 100, get 100 back. So great deal there over at Underdog Fantasy. Anything else you want to hit before we're going to be on Alarm Fantasy Football, by the way, planting our flags, if you will, about our favorite players for 2023. But anything else that you guys have before we scoot on over there, make sure you stick with us as well at the top of the hour for that Alarm Fantasy Football.
Yeah, that's going to be a big show with the flag plantery. We get to each, I think we're each doing 3 players that we're drafting everywhere. And I'll tell you right now, the 3 players that I'm picking, I'm drafting everywhere. I actually wanted to do 5 players, but we don't have time. So right now I will say that I had to take Michael Thomas out, but you can consider him a flag plant. But Michael Thomas would be probably about 4th on my list. The top 3 guys coming up next hour.
Yeah, Britt, who's your 4th? Because we all have 3. Who's your 4th? Who
didn't make the cut, Britt?
I mean, I think because everybody's talking about it, Calvin Ridley. I feel like that's been done and overdone, and I've talked about it too much. So I wanted to go a little different route, but yeah.
Would you take him in the 2nd round?
I mean, maybe.
I know.
Depends on where in the 2nd round, early or late.
Dude, it went from people calling John and Pemba live crazy for taking him in the 4th round to everyone taking him in the 3rd round. And now us saying, well, maybe you have to take him in the 2nd. So Pemba, I forget who even said it, but it was a commenter during one of our live streams where it's like, someone needs to apologize to John and Pemba because he was way ahead of the game there.
Yeah. Mine was either Jalen Warren or Jeff Wilson. I don't know if I could decide, but with Jeff Wilson probably a little banged up, it probably would have been Jalen Warren. I don't think I have anybody in my flag plans over the age of 24. So that's kind of where we stand as the noted agent here. Now, ageist, easy for me to say. But all right, I think we're going to head on over to our fantasy football here again at the top of the hour. Stick with us. Us 3 beautiful faces, as well as Howard Bender and John and Pemba, will be there at the top of the hour. Coop, Britt, anything else before we hop on?
That's it, brother. Catch you over there.
All right. Deuces, we are out. We'll see you at the top of the hour for our fantasy football.